Welcome to this pre-recorded training on completing a child pre-screen in ELMS. I'm Joyce Kilmer with the State Department of Early Learning, the ECAP program. This is part of a series of training modules on ECAP eligibility and enrollment. I'll be talking about the series more towards the end of this presentation, and you can access the other modules from the ELMS news page. First, today we're going to talk about what the pre-screen is in ELMS and why we use it. Then I'm going to show you how to determine a child's initial eligibility for ECAP in ELMS, how to complete the steps of the pre-screen, the child information step, the parent information step, estimating their federal poverty level, and then the final step of the pre-screen. And then I'll also show you where you can locate the paper forms if you want to use paper forms as well as the electronic ELMS. In a minute I'm going to open ELMS and walk you through the pre-screen, but first let's talk about what the child pre-screen is. We're sometimes asked, do we have to use the ELMS pre-screen? And the answer is yes, it's a necessary step in ELMS to get a child enrolled. You start each child in ELMS by entering the pre-screen. Though you have to use the pre-screen format in ELMS, it's optional to use it as a pre-screen. We have this pre-screen in ELMS because it was a request from the focus group that met at the beginning of the ELMS design. That group was made up of ECAP staff from across the state. Some ECAP contractors use a pre-screen every time they're admitting a child to the ECAP program. They may do a pre-screen, see how the child looks in terms of their priority for getting into ECAP, and then proceed with the highest priority children to the step of the application. Others of you proceed immediately from the pre-screen through the application, and you can do that in ELMS in one seamless process. DEL and ELMS allow both processes. So the final thing is everyone must use the ELMS pre-screen section of ELMS, but it's a local decision for ECAP contractors to use it as a pre-screening process or not. And you can gather the pre-screen information from parents when you're initially on the phone with them, in person, or through a paper form. And I'll show you the optional paper forms that are on our Department of Early Learning ECAP website towards the end of this presentation. Okay, we're going to go into ELMS now, and I'm going to just show you the steps of the pre-screen. I'm signed in as an eligibility enrollment staff person. The people who can enroll children within ELMS are either someone who is assigned the role of eligibility and enrollment staff. They may have that role in addition to other roles that they hold, such as teacher or family support specialist. And the other person who can enter children into ELMS is your ELMS administrator. I'm going to show you a variety of pre-screen situations, starting with the simplest or the most straightforward one. And then I'll come back and show you some variations. So to start a child pre-screen, you're going to click on the Child tab of ELMS. And then right here near the top, click on the word pre-screen. This is how you have to start every single child in ELMS here. That brings up a screen called Determine Initial Eligibility, where it's just going to ask a few questions here about how about what's required for every child who's coming into ELMS. So on this right side of the screen, it's reviewing those basic requirements here. A child must be 3 or 4 years of age as of August 31st of the school year. A child cannot be concurrently enrolled in ECAP or Head Start, ECAP and Head Start at the same time, and a child cannot be enrolled in ECAP at any place in the state. If they're already in ELMS, this page is going to give you some additional information to find out where they are and how to get them transferred. Okay, so I'm going to start with a child here. You can see I'm in a pretend location in ELMS where it says my organization is eligibility and enrollment contractor. So I'm in a pretend organization in ELMS. There's on a test site of ELMS, so there's no possibility you're going to see any confidential information today. First thing for me to do is to check that the school year is correct here. And I'm enrolling for 2013-14 school year. I'm going to put in the child's birth date. I'm going to check that this child will not be enrolled in Head Start simultaneously. And I'm going to put in the child's name. Middle name is optional here. And say that the child is male. You saw that as soon as I finished putting in those 3 pieces of information, there's a check at the bottom of the page that says this child's initially eligible. If I had done something wrong, let's say that I put in a birth date that makes the child, I just accidentally put in 2013 here, I'm going to get a pop-up that tells me the birth date's invalid, and it'll tell why. It'll say this child is 0 years of age as of August 31st of this school year. So let's put the correct birthday back there. And you'll also see that you've got the X at the bottom of the page that says that whatever I put in makes the child not eligible. And if you look over on the left-hand side of the bottom of the page, you can see it's because the meets age requirements status box is not checked. I'm going to put back his correct birthday here. Oops. It's just not liking me to do that right now. Let's turn the whole thing over. Okay. Okay, so now it's telling us this child's going to be a 4-year-old for the school year and that they are eligible. And I can go ahead and move to the next page of Roger's pre-screen. Okay, that moves us into a 3-step process here. You can see at the top of the page there's 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3. The number 1 is highlighted, and we're going to be entering child info on this page. The top of the page, you're going to check that you've got the right school years. Over on the right, you'll see there's a pre-screen date. It automatically fills with today's date. But let's say we actually met with the parents several days ago, so I want to change that to be the correct date. Okay, I'm checking that I've got the name right. Maybe I learned that he's got a middle name here that I can add. What name do they prefer we call the child? So a nickname. So maybe he actually goes by Junior. And then I've got a series of questions here. Is the child on an IEP? So let's say yes, he is. If you say yes, he's on an IEP, the next question gets grayed out. Does this child have a suspected delay or disability? Is this child in foster care? I'll say no for now. I'm going to come back and show a foster care example in a few minutes. Is this child homeless? I'm going to say no. That grays out or disables the next question. Does the guardian receive a child-only TANF grant for this child? And I'm going to say no. I'm going to say this child's first language is Spanish. You can put in a second language if there is a second language. Is the child Hispanic, Latino? I'm going to say yes. And then I'm going to select from the options that are the federal categories for race here. And I'm going to say this family is not seeing themselves as one of the options that are listed on here, so I'm going to be checking other and say that the family says we're Mexican. Okay. That finishes the first page of the pre-screen. I'm going to click Next to go to the second page. And it's asking for the parent's name. At the top of the second page, write just one parent's name, whoever's going to be your primary contact. Remember, we're just in the pre-screen right now. There'll be a chance to add more detailed information later in the application. So I'm going to say that the mother was here, and she has the name of Maria Ramos. Her relationship is she is the parent. Her street address is 123 Main Street in Olympia, Washington, in Thurston County. If she had a separate mailing address, I'd be entering that below. And then I'm going to choose her school district. The school district of the child's address is what you're choosing right here. So I'm putting that they live within the Olympia School District boundaries. Does the parent require an interpreter to communicate with English speakers? I'm going to say no for right now. If they did, this would just be an early reminder that you'd be leaving a note in here saying that you're going to want to have an interpreter. And then any additional parent guardians. So these are going to be people who are possibly going to be counted in the family size or whose income will be counted later. And I'm going to put in that there's a Roger Sr. here. Okay. The bottom of this page, it's a little bit easy to miss this, but you can't just type in the family size or the annual income here. You need to click this button that says Estimated Family Income. And so I'm clicking that button. It's bringing up a little pop-up that's going to walk me through making the decisions about the child's family size and income here. First, I'm going to check the child's living situation. Are they with a single parent, with two parents in one household, or do they have two parents in more than one household? I'm going to say this situation is two parents in one household. I'll come back later and show you a more complicated example. And then I need to, underneath that, check the names of those two parents. This is leading ELMS to know that these are the two adults they're going to be asking you questions about later in the application, the child's application. That's all I need to do on this page is choose from one of these three boxes and then select the parents, and then I can move on to the bottom right of the page, click the Next button. Okay, I'm still inside the pop-up that's going to help us estimate the federal poverty level. This page is about the family size. Now, family size, for the purpose of determining federal poverty level, to see if the child's eligible for ECAP, may not be the same definition as what the family thinks their family size is. It may not be the same number of people who actually live in the household. So it's important to read these questions carefully and answer each one. The top of the page, it's already counted the ECAP child, the mother, and the father. So they've already counted 3 people. The first question is, how many additional adults and children live in this house? So I'm going to say there's 3 additional adults and children. The mom's brother is living there, plus 2 of Maria and Roger's children. So the next question is, of the number just entered, that means of the number 3 that I just put in. Of the number just entered, how many people are contributing income to or supported by the income received by Maria and Roger? So I'm going to say that the uncle, Maria's brother, is on his own. So there's 2 children being supported by that income. And then of the number just entered, how many are related to Maria and Roger by blood marriage or adoption? And that, again, is both the other children here. That's changed the total at the bottom of the page to 5 people in this family size. I'm going to go ahead and click Next at the bottom of this pop-up page. Next page is estimating the family income. Anytime you see this tiny dotted line under a phrase in ELMS, you can hover over it. You get that little question mark, and then click, and it's going to give a definition of this, whatever the phrase is. So this one's saying, this is the parent's reported estimate of all income received in the previous calendar or the previous 12 months, whichever is less. No verification is is necessary to enter estimated income. So again, this is just a pre-screen. We're just getting a rough idea. And I'm going to say that they estimated their income was at $15,000 for the last calendar year. I'm going to click Save and Close. And the information that we just determined is now at the bottom of this page, the family size of 5 and the annual income of $15,000. I'm clicking next to the bottom of that page, and that takes me to the very end of the pre-screen here, where I can learn a few things. First of all, I learned that the pre-screen is completed, that the estimated federal poverty level is 54%. You can see that the words federal poverty level have those little dotted lines under them, so you can highlight and get a definition of federal poverty level there. The estimated priority level is high. If I click here, I can go that you can learn that it could be high, medium, low, and it's just a preliminary rating of the child's priority based on what we've put in so far. It's recommended that the child be put on a waiting list at this point. The waiting list has several purposes. One of them is so that you know which children are in the pipeline to get into your program, and that you can fill slots as soon as possible. Another reason is that we report this information on a statewide basis to show policymakers what the need for ECAP is. So it's not required that you put the child on a waiting list at this point, but it's recommended. And I'm going to say the child lives right between two sites, so I'm going to put them on both of these waiting lists here. It's optional to say your preference, but I'm going to say first choice and second choice. You don't have to put in a choice. And then I'm going to click this button here that says Add to the waiting list. So Roger's now on the waiting list. Also from this page, I could bring up a list of documents that I'm going to ask his parents to bring in. So if I click on that, you get kind of a standard list of verification documents. It'll be coming up in a minute. I could go right ahead and I could continue the application for Roger. I have my documents kind of, it's stuck, whatever it is. There it is. Okay, that list of documents that you might want the family to bring in. So this is just for your convenience. You don't have to use it. Okay. I could also just go straight ahead and continue working with the application for this child. Move right from the pre-screen into the child application. If I'm doing a stack of paper pre-screens, I might want to go right to pre-screen in another child. But in this case, I'm just going to save and close Roger's pre-screen. This takes me back to the child search page, where if I just click the search button, the lower right, it's going to bring up all the children that I have access to see. And I just want to let you know that these are all pretend children at this point. Even if they have the names of some of the adults in our office, they are pretend children. And Roger's right here on the list. And you can see his status is he's on the waiting list. From right here on Roger's child search page, I could add Roger to another waiting list. I can go in and view his pre-screen, or I could create his application, go forward into the application. That's a different training module, which you may be interested in, where we walk through the application. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click pre-screen at the top. And I want to show you what happens if we attempt to enter the same child a second time. This can happen because the family shows up in a different part of the state, or because there's miscommunication and someone doesn't know that the child's already been entered within the same ECAP site or contractor. But I'm going to go ahead and type in the same information for Roger here, just to show you how you know when this happens. Okay, when I do that, I've got a pop-up that says there's possible matches found in ECAP. and that I should select the child that I'm attempting to pre-screen. So if I think that the child I'm attempting to pre-screen is Roger Andrew Ramos, then I would click on this and it would take me to view his pre-screen. If I was positive that this was a different child, then I would click at the bottom where it said that it's not the same child, and it would allow me to move forward with this pre-screen. Please be very careful not to create a duplicate pre-screen in ELMS. It can mean that we get the same child going on 2 tracks, and it's quite a bit of work to merge their ELMS information later. So please, if you know it's the same child, even if the child is located somewhere else in the state, contact either your ELMS administrator or contact the Department of Early Learning ELMS support, and we can move the child's record as it already exists to where you can see it and enroll the child. Okay, so that's what happens if I attempt to enroll Roger twice. I'm going to click cancel here. I'm back to the Child tab, Child Search page. I'm going to click Pre-Screen again to start a brand new child here. So I want to show you how it works when a child is in foster care. So this case, the child is named Miranda Irwin. She's female, and she is eligible to proceed. I'm clicking Next. Okay, I'm just checking that everything at the top of this page is correct. I could change her birth date. If I misspelled her name, I could change it here. If she has a nickname, I can add in that they call her Randy. Is she on an individualized education program, an IEP? No. Does she have a suspected delay or disability? I'm going to say yes in this case. The mom's a little concerned about the child's speech. The suspected delay could mean that the parent has a concern, the staff person has a concern, or a referring professional has a concern that the child might have a developmental delay or disability. Is this child in foster care? I'm going to say yes, this child's in foster care. Once I've said that they're in foster care, it has disabled the next questions. A child can't be in foster care and homeless because the state checks out that there's a home before they award foster care. So that the homeless questions are grayed out. The question about if the guardian receives a child-only TANF grant is also grayed out. There are a few instances where a child's in foster care and there is a child-only TANF grant. In that case, select foster care. Did I have that backwards? I think there's a few cases where a child is homeless and receives a child-only TANF grant. Ignore what I just said about foster care. So I've got a child who's in foster care. I'm going to say their first language is English. They're not Hispanic. They are American Indian, Alaska Native this time. Actually, I want to show you that I can choose several categories here, and they all will display. I'm going to click Next. I'm now putting in the foster parent's name, so I'm going to put in Margaret Anderson is the foster parent. She's female, and on the relationship to child, I'm picking that she's a foster parent. I'm putting in her address. Okay. And her school district. Okay, I'm entering her phone number. And I am forgetting that you don't put in spaces when you're doing that, that if you just type it will put it in. And I'm going to say they don't need an English speaker, and I'm going to say this is a single parent foster parent. I'm not going to put in another foster parent name. You can see at the bottom of the page now there is not an estimated family income button where it used to be. Because this is a child in foster care, during the pre-screen, ELMS is automatically entering that they're a family size of 1, and they're putting in the average annual foster care grant for the state of Washington. And that's enough for a pre-screen situation here. This is skipping the whole pop-up that estimates family federal poverty level. I can click Next, and I'm at the end of the child's pre-screen. From here I can add the child to a waiting list or move on to the application. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add one more child's pre-screen. And whoops, I put in a wrong birth date accidentally here. So this is a child who would have been 5 by August 31st and eligible for kindergarten. So I'm going to change the year, and now they're 3 years old. And I'm going to say they're not planning to be in Head Start. And this child is Homer Simpson. That's really bad, but I started with the idea that I was going to make this child homeless, and that led me to Homer. Okay. Something's not working. Oh, my button, I didn't click really well on the Head Start question. Okay, this child's eligible. I want to show you what happens when we're working with a child who is homeless here. So they're not in foster care. Is this child homeless? If we say that the child's homeless, then we have another question underneath asking if they live with a parent or legal guardian. Almost always they do. It's a very, very rare situation for a child to be homeless and not with a legal guardian of some sort. But if that was true and you check that no, they're not with a legal guardian, I'm going to quick put in some languages here. Move to the next page. Oops, I didn't say if they were Hispanic or not, apparently. And I'm going to do the quick version of this. And this is an other because they weren't a legal guardian. Okay, I just want to show you at the bottom of the page when the child is either on child-only TANF, foster care, or homeless without a legal guardian. This is going to fill at the bottom with a family size of 1, and it's going to estimate the annual income for you. And a child without a legal guardian almost always has 0 income. So that's what's automatically put in here in this situation. It's not liking that I put in other for the adult's relationship to the child, and I'm going to say that it is a cousin who is attempting to get legal custody, legal guardianship, that the parent disappeared for some reason. So this, again, is a very, very rare situation, but I wanted to make sure that you knew how to handle it. I accidentally closed that without going to the next page. So I'll show you how to find it again if that happens. Is that the top? Okay. There he is. Okay, it says it's an incomplete pre-screen. I'm clicking on under the child status column on incomplete pre-screen. And what I needed to do was come in and do next and next. And then I'm to the page that it's completed. If you left something out that's required, this will say at the top that the pre-screen is not completed. And here under next steps, there'll be a place where you can, there'll be another option that says View Incomplete Information. You'll be able to click on that and fill in the piece that was missing. Okay. I'm going to show you one more pre-screen today, and that's a child who has a complicated joint custody situation. So I'm going to fill in the parts that we've already filled in, and just for my memory's sake, I'm going to put in joint custody as their name. That's not a real name. The child's initially eligible for ECAP. I'm checking the top of the page. It's all correct. I'm saying no, no, no for all these questions on this page. Their first language is English in this case, and this child is white. Actually, I'm going to leave out race if it'll let me uncheck it at this point. Yes, so you can see how the incomplete works. Okay, and I'm going to just quickly move us through the guardian page as well. I'm going to say this child lives with their parent, and I'm faking the way through the address here. We don't need an interpreter. And then this is a child who has 2 households, and there's a lot of adults involved here. I'm actually going to change this name so I can keep track of who the adults are. So we've got mom 1, we've got, we've got mom's boyfriend, we have dad, dad at the second house, and we have dad's wife. Okay, a common situation here. I need to click the estimated family income button and track that situation here. So this isn't one parent in one household. It's not 2 parents in one household. It's 2 parent guardians in 2 households here. Once I check that, there's going to be a series of questions that help me figure out if we, for the purpose of determining ECAP eligibility, if we are only using one of the 2 households or if we're actually using 2 households. So in almost all cases when there's 2 households, one of them has primary custody. That might be established in the parenting plan. It might be that the child just lives like 90% of the time at one house. So if you know that there is a household with primary custody, you're going to click yes, and then you're going to fill in, select the parent guardian and their spouse, if any, who live in the household with the primary custody. I'm going to say mom is the parent with the primary custody. She's not married to the mom boyfriend, so I'm not checking him. If she was married to him, his income would count. He'd be counted in family size, and we would keep him. So I'm going to undo that and say no to the original question so I can proceed and show you the whole list. If I say yes to this first question, the rest of the questions are grayed out. You just click next at the bottom of the page and go on. But I'm going to say, nope, we don't have one household that has clear primary custody. So I go into the second question. Does one parent receive child support payments from the other household? If the answer to this is yes, I'll be picking the parent and their spouse, if any, who live in the house receiving the child support. And that's the household that would be counted for the ECAP eligibility purposes. But let's say there's no child support changing hands in this situation, no legal requirement for child support. It's pretty much a 50-50 situation. So I'm saying no for that. That leads us to a situation that's kind of pure joint custody. And in that case, I need to follow these instructions. I'm going to select the one legal parent guardian from each household that shares custody of the ECAP child. For instance, this could be the parents listed in the parenting plan. So I'm going to say in household 1, it's mom. In household 2, it's dad. In this case, it's going to move forward with just these 2 adults' income. It's not going to consider spouse's income. That's a formula established by the Federal Head Start program. ELMS does the math for you in this situation. Again, this is rather rare. Most of the time that you have 2 parents in 2 households, there is a primary household, and you don't need to work with the 2 household situation for the determination of eligibility. I'm clicking, whoops, I'm sorry, but I think I undid my answers in that last maneuver. Okay, when I click next, now it's got the family size separated into 2 different households. Here I have household 1, the ECAP child and mom. How many additional children and adults are living there? Well, there's the boyfriend and 1 more child, so I'll say 2. This is very odd. I'm clicking the word 2 and I'm getting a 0. There we go. Okay. Of the number just entered, how many are contributing income to or supported by the income received by? So the boyfriend puts in income into the household, and the other child is supported by, so there's 2 there. And then of the number just entered, how many are related to mom by blood, marriage, or adoption? And the boyfriend is not, so we just have the 1 additional sibling here. This is says household 1 has a family size of 3. Household 2, here is counting the ECAP child 1 more time. I'll explain why in a minute. It's counting dad. How many additional children and adults live in this household? Just dad's wife. Is she contributing income or supported by the income of dad? Yes. And is she related by blood, marriage, or adoption to dad? Yes, they are married. So their household size is also 3. What in this situation, according to the Head Start formula as well as the ECAP formula, the total family size that we use for eligibility adds these 2 together. So it's adding the 3 here, the 3 here, and then dividing by the 2 households. So for the purpose of determining the federal poverty level, the total family size is going to be 3 for this child. For most of us, it's best to just answer the questions real honestly and let ELMS do the math here. If it comes to it, if it's a fraction, if it were 2.5, it's going to round up to 3. I'm clicking next, and now I'm going to put in the estimated income received by mom, not by her boyfriend, so I'm just putting in the mom's estimated income. And the same thing at house 2, even though dad's married, it's just his income that we're counting at this point here. Save and close here. It is added their 2 incomes together and divided by 2, again using the Head Start formula. So that's what we're seeing in the annual income box at the bottom of the page here. The 12,000 and 20,000 divided by 2 makes 16,000. Okay. I've finished that complicated situation. Move to the next page, and it's saying that the prescreen is completed. The child's federal poverty level based on that complicated formula is about 82%. Their priority is high. There is a box here on this page. It's optional, but if your program wants to keep track of how families learn about income, this is a place where you could record that. So here's this family learned by word of mouth. And I could add the child to the waiting list, print their list of documentations, or continue with their application at this point. But that's the end of my demonstrations on the prescreen. So I'm going to go ahead and show you where there's some paper forms that might be of use to you. So if you use the URL www.del.wa.gov, that's for the Department of Early Learning, and do /ECAP. It takes you to this page that's information for ECAP contractors. Over on the right, you'll see that there's a link called ECAP Forms and Documents, and that's where you want to go. You might want to bookmark this page for yourself. Here towards the top of this page, there's training materials related to ELMS. You can see right here the brand new ELMS Eligibility and Enrollment Manual is available here. The next section is ELMS training modules. The module you're watching right now will be listed here, as well as many more training modules. And then here are copies of forms that could be of use to you while you're doing the enrollment process, including the paper versions of the child pre-screen in English and in Spanish. Okay. I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint. And you can see that I've put the address here to get yourself to the ECAP paper forms. I want to point out that this is the second in a series of eligibility and enrollment training modules that are available from the Department of Early Learning that can help you work with the ELMS program. The first one, the Eligibility and Enrollment Overview, goes over the ECAP requirements related to eligibility and enrollment. The others show you how to work step by step through ELMS. So we're hoping those are useful to you. If you need help with ELMS at any time, the way to get it is to email us at elms@del.wa.gov. That's the fastest way to get help. We're often responding immediately, but always within a business day. Please use the email rather than the phone or any other method to reach us, because 3 or 4 of us are looking at this email box all the time. So that concludes the pre-screen presentation. If you have suggestions or questions, please use the email on your screen to let us know.